So far we've discussed how bacteria generate ATP using cellular respiration. There are other pathways that are available to bacteria. That other pathway is fermentation. And the benefit of fermentation that y'all are going to take away from this is how bacteria, or really more specifically, it tends to be yeast that does this, and yeast is a eukaryotic organism, okay? There are some bacteria that do generate alcohol as a byproduct. Most bacteria, though, are going to generate acid products. Yeast is what really gives us alcohol. So if you brew your own beer at home, you know you've got some yeast that's involved in that process. What we've been doing for centuries is taking advantage of those microbes to generate a product we want. In this case, that product is the alcohol, okay? Our other product from fermentation are going to be various acids, okay? And in terms of fermentation, it's a whole lot more simple as far as the number of steps that I want you to understand for the class. We're still starting out with glucose, and by glycolysis, we are going to break down that glucose into pyruvate. It's going to generate our NADH. It's also going to generate a little bit of ATP. All right? Then our pyruvate can go down one of two pathways. So I'm going to bifurcate this here, go two different ways. All right? In terms of that, what ends up happening with pyruvate, okay, if we're talking about going and generating alcohol as a byproduct, all right, that pyruvate is going to essentially lose, maybe I won't draw it that way, is going to lose one of the carbons. So we're going to generate some carbon dioxide. That's why when you brew things, they get a little bit fizzy. The fizzy that you're getting is from the carbon dioxide, okay? The other thing that's going to happen down that pathway then, that NADH that's generated as part of glycolysis is going to be what converts the pyruvate ultimately into our alcohol, into an ethanol, all right? So our NADH donates that electron. We regenerate our NAD, which can be reused up here in glycolysis, all right? And that generates our byproduct, that generates our ethanol, okay? And in terms of fermentation, typically what we're exploiting most of the time is going to be yeast in that process, okay? There are some bacteria that do undergo fermentation to generate alcohol products. They're different alcohol products than the ethanol that you would drink, okay? But in terms of that, this is how we exploit bacteria for our own uses, all right? We're taking advantage of how they use energy, all right? So the alcohol pathway is one. The other pathway is going to be acids, okay? And in terms of that, again, our NADH is going to donate that electron, all right? And in this case, instead of generating an alcohol, we're generating an acid, all right? Commonly, some acids that are generated are lactic acid. You may be familiar with this from A&P. Our bodies do have the ability to generate some ATP via fermentation. The pathway we go down is generating lactic acid. So if you've ever worked out and you get your muscles where they're really kind of burning after you work out really intensely, you've generated some lactic acid there. Okay, so you've lowered the pH in and around your muscle. That's where the discomfort comes from. Eventually the body reabsorbs that lactic acid. It converts it to other stuff. I'm not worried that you know what the other stuff is. But that lactic acid is removed. Your muscle pain goes away, all right? Bacteria can also undergo this pathway. They generate, in the case of lactic acid, If you like yogurt, the lactic acid that's generated from the bacteria, the acidophilus, is very commonly used in most yogurts that you can buy at your grocery store. They generate lactic acid. That's what gives the tang to the yogurt that you're eating. Okay? There are some other acids that can be generated as well. You can generate some succinate acids, and you can generate also some formic acid. And what acid is generated really depends on the type of bacteria that we're talking about. I don't want you to know which bacteria generate lactic acid versus succinate versus formic. I want you to know that those are the potential acids that can be generated. Okay? So in terms of that, those are the things I want you to keep in mind with fermentation. Again, much simpler on my diagram here. You can go one of two ways: alcohol, or I guess I should add this up here, or acid for the products. Okay? Essentially, the process is using the same molecules that we generated as part of glycolysis. The pyruvate is either converted into an acid of some sort, or it's generated into alcohol. All right? Thank you for your attention. Let me know if you have any questions.